The Korean Mafia boss's daughter had never spoken a single word until the black waitress did something miraculous. Han Seo-jun was not a man who scared easily. He'd stared down guns, rivals, police raids, betrayal. He'd watched grown men drop to their knees at just a look from him. People whispered his name in Koreatown like it was a curse you only used under your breath. But nothing in his life, not one bloody night, not one ambush, had ever terrified him the way three small syllables did. Daddy. The word came out broken, unsure, like someone trying to remember a language they'd only ever heard in dreams. His world stopped. The coffee cup slipped from his hand and shattered on the marble floor, hot liquid splashing his shoes. He didn't feel it. He didn't hear the staff gasp. All he could hear was that voice, her voice, tiny, shaky, real. He turned slowly, afraid that if he moved too fast, it would vanish. His daughter stood in the doorway of the private booth, fingers twisted in the hem of her little yellow dress. 5 years old, straight black hair falling over her cheeks, eyes too big for her small face. And next to her, one hand gently on the girl's shoulder, stood the woman who had somehow stepped into his life like she'd always belonged there. Imani Rivers, a black waitress in a slightly wrinkled Midnight Soul uniform, curly hair pulled back under a bandana, eyes wide with something between shock and hope. She looked at him like she couldn't quite believe what had just happened either. "Daddy," Hannah whispered again. This time there was no stutter, just certainty. The sound punched the air from his lungs. For 5 years. His daughter's mouth had never shaped a word. Not mama, not appa, not yes or no. She laughed sometimes, smiled rarely, cried silently. Doctors called it trauma-induced mutism. Therapists used softer phrases, selective silence, emotional block. They filled his ears with careful explanations. No one had fixed it. Not the specialists, not the clinics. Not the money he threw at the problem like it was just another enemy to crush. But this waitress, this woman who, on paper, was nobody in his world, had done something no one else could. "Say it again," he breathed, voice breaking. Hannah's eyes flicked to Imani, as if asking permission. Imani knelt beside her, heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. "It's okay, baby," she whispered. "If you want to, only if you want to." Hannah looked back at her father. "Daddy," she said. A sound ripped from his chest, half laugh, half sob. His men at the door pretended not to look. The restaurant hummed outside the frosted glass. Neon lights painted moving shadows on the floor. Inside this booth, time split in two. Before this word, after this word, Han Seo-jun pressed his hand over his mouth, trying to hold himself together and failing badly. "How?" he choked, eyes shining, locked on Imani. "What did you do?" Imani swallowed, throat tight, fingers still tangled in Hannah's little hand. I just hummed," she said. "Same song I used to sing to my baby brother when he had nightmares." She hummed back. Then she tried the word. He stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. The woman who had carried plates through his dining room for months, head down, shoulders tired. Always careful, always polite. The woman he'd hired because she needed a job. The woman he'd told himself he was doing a favor for. He realized in that second he'd been wrong. This was not pity. This was purpose. She had just given his daughter something no one else could. A voice. And with it, without knowing, she had taken something from him too. The part of his heart he'd sealed shut the day his wife died. Before she ever heard Hannah speak, the first time Imani saw the Korean Mafia boss, he made the air shift. He wasn't trying to. He walked into Midnight Soul the way he owned every room. Black suit, white shirt, tie perfect, hair neat, expression carved from stone. Two men in darker suits followed a step behind, eyes scanning, hands empty but dangerous. Imani nearly collided with him carrying a tray. She stopped so suddenly the glasses rattled. "Sorry," she blurted, stepping back. He looked at her, not up and down, not through her, at her. "Be careful," he said quietly. No threat, no insult, just a warning, like he didn't want to see her drop anything. Then he moved on into the private back section only VIPs ever saw. "Relax, Rivers," the hostess whispered as she passed. "That's the owner. He's just tall and terrifying." "Just?" Imani muttered. Girl, he has, I've buried problems energy. They snickered behind their hands. Later, washing dishes, she asked the line cook. So he's just a restaurant guy or? The cook snorted. Restaurant is the front, he said. Streets say he runs more than dumplings. Imani rolled her eyes. Yeah, well, streets say a lot of things. Streets also say my landlord will suddenly fix the heating. Lying-ass streets. Still, there was something about him, not just the danger. Plenty of men strutted like they owned blocks they couldn't even spell. This was different. He moved quietly. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't show off. He listened more than he spoke. And when a drunk customer grabbed Imani's wrist too hard that night, the man was gone from the restaurant the next week. No explanation. No scene. Just gone. She never got proof. She didn't need it. She knew. Imani hadn't planned to spend her 20s pouring tea for gangsters and night shift nurses. Life didn't ask. Life just happened. Her father's heart attack came too early. Her mother's depression too deep. Her baby brother's asthma too expensive. College turned into community classes and half-finished credits. Dreams turned into survival. She picked up whatever work she could. Day shifts at a laundromat, occasional hair braiding on weekends, night shifts at Midnight Soul. Her body was exhausted most days. Her hope never quite was. That's what made her dangerous without knowing. People who still believed in goodness were the most subversive thing in a world like his. The first time she saw Hannah, she didn't know she was special. She was just the little girl in the private booth. Tiny thing, maybe 4 at the time. Pale yellow dress, socks slightly wrinkled at the ankles, hair cut in a neat bob. She sat beside the boss as he ate in silence, small legs swinging. He didn't talk much. She didn't talk at all. Imani noticed the way he looked at the kid. There was gentleness there. Fear, too. Like he was terrified that if he blinked, she'd vanish. When Imani stepped into the booth to refill water, Hannah's dark eyes darted to her face, then quickly down to her own hands. Hi, sweetheart, Imani said softly. You want anything else? More fries? More juice? No answer, just a blink. The boss's voice stayed neutral. She's fine. Imani nodded awkwardly, excused herself. Outside the booth, she asked the hostess, How old is she, the boss's kid? 5, the hostess replied. Poor thing. Born mute, they say. Born, Imani echoed. Yeah, or close to. Something with the birth, or shock. Who knows? He spends so much on fancy doctors, but the baby hasn't said a word in 5 years. Imani's chest tightened. A little girl in that world with no voice. That wasn't just sad. That was dangerous. Later that night, as she wiped down table 6, she heard bits of staff gossip float from the kitchen. Wife died giving birth, right? They say he went crazy for a month. He didn't leave the house for weeks. When he came back, he was colder. Wouldn't you be? Imani kept her head down, rag moving in circles. She'd seen grief up close, seen what it did to people. Some drowned, some hardened, some made themselves smaller. He made himself sharper, knife man instead of drowning man. Out of the corner of her eye, she caught a glimpse of his profile through the frosted glass as he sat with Hannah. The way his hand hovered just behind her back as she climbed onto the bench, ready to steady her if she slipped. A man who'd lost love once and wasn't ready to bet on it again. She understood that more than she wanted to admit. The miracle didn't show up as fireworks. It showed up as a sound so small most people would have missed it. Imani was on a break in the staff area, earbuds in but not playing anything, just blocking out the noise. She was exhausted. Her feet hurt. Her brain buzzed with math. Rent, overdue bill, grocery list, inhaler refill. She was halfway through a stale staff sandwich when the door to the private hallway creaked open. Hannah appeared, clutching a small stuffed rabbit by one ear. They stared at each other. You lost, baby? Imani asked gently, pulling an earbud out. Hannah didn't respond. Her eyes were huge, rimmed and tired. Imani stood slowly, like she was approaching a stray cat. Your daddy in the bathroom? She asked. Tiny nod. Imani's heart melted a little. Okay, she said. We can wait here, yeah? She sat back down, leaving space beside her on the bench. Hannah stayed in the doorway, shy, silent, curious. Imani glanced at the rabbit. That your friend? She asked. What's their name? No answer. She smiled to herself. Mine was named Peanut Butter, she said. I slept with that thing until I was like 12. My mom had to sneak it away. Still nothing. That was fine. Want to hear something? She asked softly. She hummed a few notes. An old melody. The one her grandmother used to hum while cooking. The one she later used for her little brother when his asthma attacks left him panicked and gasping. Soft, repetitive, safe. Hannah's shoulders relaxed almost immediately. Imani noticed. She kept going. Hmm, hmm, hmm. A gentle pattern. Hannah took a small step into the room. Imani pretended not to see, eyes on her sandwich. Hum never breaking. Another step, then another. Tiny socks on old tile. Soon, Hannah was close enough that Imani could smell baby shampoo and something floral from her dress. Hannah's fingers flexed around the rabbit's ear. And then, barely there, under her breath, a note that matched Imani's. The hum doubled, faint and off-key, but real. Imani's heart slammed. She didn't react, didn't gasp, didn't break the moment. She just kept humming. Hannah's small voice followed, matching her, humming then stopping, testing, starting again, like a bird trying to remember how to sing. That's how Han Seo-jun found them. He stepped into the staff hallway, expecting to see his daughter hiding behind his leg like she always did around strangers. Instead, he saw her standing beside a waitress, eyes half closed, humming. Not just random noise, not just a squeak, deliberate sound, in rhythm. His jaw tightened. Imani cut the tune off immediately when she noticed him, instinctively afraid she'd crossed some invisible line. Sorry, she said quickly, standing. She wandered in. I was just... What were you doing? He asked. His tone wasn't harsh, but it wasn't soft either. Neutral, dangerous. I was humming, she said. It calms her, I think. She hummed back. He looked down at Hannah. Is that true? He asked gently. Hannah looked between them. Then in the smallest gesture, she nodded. His chest burned. Thank the lady, he said. Hannah stepped closer to Imani. She lifted her hand and curled her fingers in a tiny wave. It wasn't words, but it was something. You're welcome. Baby, Imani murmured, suddenly aware she was shaking a little. He watched the way his daughter seemed to lean toward the sound of her. That night, when he reviewed the security cameras, he watched the moment again. The way the girl he'd never heard make a sound mirrored the waitress's tune. He replayed it. Once, twice, 10 times. He didn't sleep. After that, everything changed in ways so small, nobody else saw it. He requested Imani for the private section more often. Rivers will handle table 12, he'd say casually, like it didn't matter. Managers nodded. They didn't ask why. He didn't look at her differently, didn't flirt, didn't smile more, or stand closer. He just observed. The way Hannah's eyes lit up when Imani approached. The way she relaxed when she heard the same humming under Imani's breath as she poured tea. The way she accepted juice from Imani's hand but refused it from other waitresses. One evening, as they left the restaurant at closing time, he saw Imani stop at the corner store and buy a pack of cheap crayons and a little notepad. The next day, she brought them to the private booth. This is for her, she said, setting the crayons in front of Hannah, in case she ever wants to draw what she can't say. Hannah hesitated, then slowly reached out and took one crayon, a blue one. He watched the exchange, something hot in his throat. You didn't need to do that, he said. Imani shrugged. It's just crayons, she said. He knew better. It wasn't just crayons. It was someone seeing his daughter as a child, not as a problem to be solved. Of course, not everyone liked the change. One of his older lieutenants, a man who'd been with him since he was 17, cornered him one night in the back office. Boss, he said carefully, people are talking. People always talk, Seo-jun said without looking up from the ledger. They say you're getting soft, the man persisted. Spending time in the restaurant, letting your girl be around staff, around strangers. He didn't need to say it, around that black waitress. Seo-jun shut the ledger. Do you have a problem with my daughter smiling? He asked quietly. The lieutenant hesitated. No, boss, but... Then you don't have a problem, he said. There was steel in his voice. The man backed down, but the words stayed. Soft. They think I'm getting soft. He looked at the security feed of the private booth. at his daughter coloring with that woman, at the way the woman hummed without even noticing she was doing it, at the way Hannah had begun to copy the hum soundlessly. Maybe he was getting soft. Maybe he didn't care. The real shift came on a bad night. The kind of night when old grudges came knocking and new tensions simmered at the edges of his territory. A deal had gone wrong. A shipment had been delayed. A rival had mouthed off. By the time he stepped into Midnight Soul, his jaw was clenched and his hands ached to hit something. Hannah was already there, waiting in their usual booth, playing with her crayons. She looked up when he walked in, eyes scanning his face. She saw it. Children sense storms before adults admit they're there. She shrank a little on the seat. Imani noticed too. She stood at the entrance to the booth, tray in hand. "Boss," she said quietly, "everything okay?" "Yes," he bit out. It was a lie. A bad one. He slid into the booth opposite Hannah, the anger from the meeting still echoing through his muscles. He didn't raise his voice. He never did. But his silence tonight was sharp. Hannah watched him, crayon paused in midair. Her little shoulders went tight. Imani watched both of them. Something in her chest squeezed. She set the tray down. "Can I get you anything?" she asked him. "Tea? Food?" "I'm fine," he snapped. More harsh than he meant to. Imani's eyes flicked to Hannah, then back to him. She didn't flinch. Instead, she did something no one in his world ever did. She stepped closer. "Hansi," she said softly, using his name with the kind of respect that wasn't fear. "You're scaring her." The room chilled. His men at the door stiffened. Nobody talked to him like that. His jaw tightened. "Excuse me?" he said, voice low. Imani swallowed, but she didn't back down. "She reads your face," she said, "not your words. And right now, your face looks like the alley behind my building before a fight breaks out." He exhaled, slow, controlled. He looked at Hannah. She was clutching the blue crayon so hard it had snapped. Guilt cut through the anger like a cleaner blade. He forced his shoulders to drop. He unclenched his hands. Then he did something that surprised them all. He said, "I had a bad day. I shouldn't bring it to the table." Imani nodded. "Do you want me to take her for a minute?" she asked. "Let you breathe?" He hesitated, then nodded once. Hannah hesitated when Imani reached out a hand, but that humming started again. Soft, familiar, safe. Hannah slid off the seat and went with her. Seo Jun watched them go, a waitress walking away with his whole heart and the only person alive who could break him. He realized something then. Imani Rivers wasn't just good with his daughter. She was good for him too, and that terrified him more than any gun ever had. That night after closing, he found them in the staff area. Imani sat cross-legged on the floor, Hannah beside her, both of them coloring in a cheap princess coloring book Imani had picked up from a dollar store. He paused in the doorway. Imani looked up. "Sorry, are we in the way?" she asked, starting to stand. "No," he said. "Stay." He stepped inside. He crouched down so he was level with Hannah. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. Hannah blinked. Then slowly she reached out and put the broken blue crayon in his palm. Her way of saying, "It's okay." Imani's eyes stung. He looked at the waitress. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For defending her," he answered. She shrugged. "Someone defended me once when they didn't have to," she said. "I promised I'd return that kind of energy whenever I could." He studied her. "What happened?" he asked. She smiled, sad and small. "Another story, boss," she said. "Tonight's about hers." That was the moment he realized he wanted to hear all her stories. Not as background noise while she poured tea. Not as small talk in the staff room. As something else. Something dangerous. Something like love. He shoved the thought away. He had a daughter to protect, a world to manage, and yet, when he walked back to his office, the sound that followed him wasn't gunfire or sirens or the clink of glasses. It was a hum. Two voices, barely audible, one woman, one little girl, humming the same melody. Not yet words, not yet, but close. Closer than anyone had ever come. And he had no idea that the next time that melody filled the booth, it would carry something else with it. A miracle wrapped in 3 syllables. Da-dee. He didn't know when it happened, when the humming turned into something he depended on. when the waitress turned into someone he watched without blinking, when his daughter's small hand started reaching for her the moment she walked in. It wasn't a sudden shift. It was slow, dangerous, careful, like the way winter melts into spring without anyone noticing the last patch of ice. But he felt it. Every day he felt it. Imani didn't try to become anything. She wasn't pushing for a place in their lives. She wasn't trying to impress him. She wasn't playing games. She just existed with a softness the world had tried to beat out of her. She'd walk into the private booth, humming under her breath without realizing it, and Hana would stop whatever she was doing, coloring, doodling, staring blankly at her juice, just to look up. Every time Imani hummed that melody, Hana's chest rose and fell slower, smoother. Every time Imani lowered herself to Hana's height, the girl leaned in. Every time Imani smiled, the corner of Hana's mouth twitched, trying to mimic it. Little miracles, tiny ones, the kind only a parent counting the seconds of silence understands. And Han Seo-jun counted everyone. It happened 3 weeks after the humming incident. They were in the back corridor, Imani refilling the teapot, Hana drawing blue swirls on her notepad. Seo-jun was talking quietly to one of his lieutenants, tension visible in the set of his jaw. He wasn't yelling. He never yelled. But his silence was sharp. Too sharp. Hana's eyes flicked to him, sensing the tension. Her little fingers trembled on the crayon. The air changed like every time before. Imani noticed instantly. She put the pot down and walked toward Hana, not hesitating. Bending down on one knee, she whispered, "Hey, want to help me with something?" Hana blinked. Imani took out 2 metal spoons from her apron pocket. Restaurant spoons she wasn't supposed to steal, but she always did for this. She tapped the spoon twice on her palm. Clink, clink. Then she laid the spoon on Hana's small hand. Hana stared at it. Tap, tap, Imani repeated. A rhythm, soft, predictable, safe. For the first time in weeks, Hana mimicked the motion. Clink, clink. Seo-jun froze mid-conversation. His daughter's shoulders loosened, her knees uncurled. The fear in her eyes faded like mist after sunrise. Imani tapped again. Hana matched the rhythm perfectly. Clink, clink. A tiny message. I'm okay. Seo-jun excused himself from the conversation. He watched from the shadows, breath tight. Imani exhaled slowly and smiled. You're doing amazing, she whispered, and she didn't even realize. That was the first time Hana reached out for Imani's hand on her own. Not because she was scared, but because she trusted her. And trust was the miracle that came before the big miracle. He'd never offered a seat to anyone. Not to rivals, not to friends, never to a woman who worked under him. But when Imani walked into the booth that evening with Hana's dinner tray, he spoke before thinking, "Sit with us." She froze. Huh? Sit. Eat. Her eyebrows rose. Boss, I'm working. Just 5 minutes. But the manager, I'll handle it, she exhaled. Okay. She sat beside Hana, trying to make herself small, like she didn't belong at their table. But Hana immediately scooted closer, and that made Imani's throat tighten. They ate in silence. Not awkward, not tense. Just peaceful. Soon she set her chopsticks down. Is it always this quiet? He looked at her. My daughter doesn't speak, he said. But you do, she replied. It hit him harder than any punch. Her voice was always calm, matter of fact, warm. But this wasn't softness. It was truth. She needs to hear you, Imani said. Kids in silence. They grow into adults who apologize for taking space. He stared at her. You talk like a therapist, he muttered. She laughed softly. I talk like someone who grew up translating everything for everyone. He filed that away. Imani looked at Hana again and ran her fingers through the child's hair gently. She listens. You can't hear her yet, but she listens. Hana leaned into her touch like it was the first warmth she'd ever known, and Seo-jun felt something collapse inside him. A wall, a fortress, a lifetime of fear. Hana got sick, not gravely, not dangerously, just a small fever, a cold, a shiver in her voice. But for a child who never spoke, silence suddenly carried a different heaviness. He brought her to the restaurant anyway. He didn't trust anyone at home to look after her. The moment Imani saw Hana's flushed cheeks, she dropped everything and rushed toward them. Oh, baby, she whispered. brushing her fingers across Hana's forehead. You're burning up. Hana pressed her small face into Imani's chest. Not her father's. Imani's. Seo Jun felt a knife twist inside him, but not in jealousy. In awe. I'll take her to the clinic, he said. No, Imani said. She's scared, and she needs comfort first. I'll go with you. He didn't argue. At the clinic, Hana refused to open her mouth for the doctor, cried silently, pulled away, shook her head violently. Imani hummed. Instant calm. Hana opened her mouth. The doctor blinked. I've never seen her do that. Seo Jun didn't hear the doctor. He heard the truth. Hana trusted Imani more than anyone else alive. He didn't plan on confessing anything. He didn't plan on telling her the truth. But fate doesn't wait for planning. It was closing time. Midnight Soul's neon lights flickered. Chairs were stacked. Staff cleaned the last tables. Imani was wiping down the private booth when Hana suddenly toddled toward her, dragging her stuffed rabbit by the ear. Imani smiled. Hey, baby, you tired? Hana lifted her arms, asking to be picked up. Imani hesitated only a second before scooping her up. Hana squeezed her neck and rested her head on Imani's shoulder. And then, in a voice barely above a breathless whisper, the miracle began. Me. Imani froze. What? She whispered. Hana whispered. A request. Imani's eyes filled instantly. She hummed. Soft, familiar, like always. Hana's breathing steadied. Her eyes fluttered. Seo Jun stood at the doorway. He had seen many things in his life. Men betray him, friends die, empires built, rivals crumble. But nothing prepared him for the sight of his mute daughter whispering her first request to another woman. He stepped closer. Imani looked up and met his gaze. Boss? She whispered, voice shaking. She tried to say something. What did she say? She asked me to hum. His breath caught. He approached slowly, afraid to break something he didn't understand. Let me try. He reached a hand toward Hana, but Hana buried her face deeper into Imani's neck. Imani froze. Seo Jun's heart cracked clean in the center. Not because Hana rejected him, but because she chose someone else to help her feel safe. He looked at Imani. His voice was soft, raw, bare. What are you doing to my daughter? Imani swallowed. I'm loving her, she whispered. And me? He asked before he could stop himself. What are you doing to me? The question stunned them both. She stepped back, breath trembling. I don't know, she said honestly. He closed his eyes. Yes, he murmured. You do. After that night, something changed between all three of them. It wasn't romantic yet. It wasn't spoken. It wasn't obvious. But it was real. He found himself waiting for her humming. She found herself staying a little longer at their booth. Hana reached for Imani's hand more than her father's. And slowly, a family began forming before anyone dared name it. It was a quiet evening. Rain streaked the restaurant windows. A warm glow filled the private booth. Hana was scribbling circles with crayons, humming faintly. Imani was wiping down the table. Seo Jun was watching them both. A soft, steady peace hung in the air, until Hana suddenly froze. She looked up at Imani, then walked to her slowly, tugged her apron, pointed to her own throat. Imani knelt down. She whispered. What's wrong, baby? Hana opened her mouth. Air came out. A sound, a breath, a beginning. Imani held her breath too. Ha, Hana whispered. Imani's eyes widened. Ha, she repeated. Seo Jun stood. His knees almost gave out. Hana swallowed, pointed at her father, and the universe tilted. Die. The word was broken, shaky, perfect. Imani covered her mouth with shaking fingers. Seo Jun's eyes flooded instantly. He dropped to the floor in front of them, hands trembling as he cupped his daughter's cheeks. Say it again, he whispered, voice cracking. Daddy, Imani sobbed. Seo Jun pressed his forehead to his daughter's, then looked up at Imani with the kind of expression men only wear once in their lifetime. An expression that said, you just gave me back the one thing the world stole from me. My daughter, her voice, my hope, my heart. And that was the moment he fell in love with her. Not slowly, not gently, completely. Like something inevitable. Like fate. Like destiny walking into his booth wearing a wrinkled apron and humming an old melody. Han Seo-jun had been in love before. Or at least he'd thought he had. He'd married young, married fast. Married a woman who taught him that softness could exist even in a world built on edges. He'd watched her belly grow with his child, watched her laugh in their cramped kitchen, watched her kiss his knuckles when he came home too late, and then he'd watched her die in a hospital bed, bleeding out while doctors shouted numbers and nurses pushed him back. After that, he decided love was a luxury men like him couldn't afford twice, so he built walls, built rules, built a life where nothing and no one could ever hurt him like that again. He truly believed he was done, until his mute daughter said daddy for the first time, with her head resting on another woman's shoulder. Until he saw Imani's hands shaking as she cried from happiness over a child who wasn't hers. Until he realized he wanted to spend the rest of his life making sure she never had to carry that joy alone. He didn't let Hana out of his arms for the rest of the night. He carried her to the car. He carried her up the stairs. He carried her through the apartment that had always sounded like silence. She broke it. Not with full sentences, not yet, but with little sounds. Da. More. Up. Ma. She'd stop, then frown, as if reaching for a ghost. He didn't push. He just listened. Listened like a starving man finally hearing his native language after years in exile. When he tucked her into bed, she grabbed his wrist. Song, she whispered. His chest burned. I don't know how, he said honestly. Not like her. Hana closed her eyes. She attempted, trying to imitate the sound Imani made. He laughed, the sound wet and broken. You want me to hum like Imani? She nodded, so he did. Terribly, off-key, low and rough. But he hummed. The little girl slowly drifted off, fingers still curled around his thumb. He sat on the floor beside her bed until sunrise. Every time she shifted, he hummed again. He didn't care that his voice was bad. He cared that his daughter trusted him enough to ask, and he knew exactly who had taught her how. The next day, he did something that shocked everyone on his payroll. He went to the restaurant in broad daylight. No suit, no entourage, no aura of danger, jeans, t-shirt, exhaustion written in the lines of his face. Imani was wiping down tables, hair tied with a bright scarf, eyes half-lidded in that third shift in a row way. She looked up when his shadow fell across at table 3. Oh, she said, startled. Boss, good morning, or afternoon, or whatever this is. You look human, he offered. She smiled despite herself. Tired, she said, but in a less murdery way. He almost smiled back. Come on, break with me, he said. She blinked. I'm not due for... I talked to the manager, he cut in gently. 15 minutes. That's all I'm asking. She hesitated, then nodded. They ended up sitting on a crate in the alley, backs against the brick, the hum of the restaurant buzzing faintly behind them. Is she okay? Imani blurted before anything else. Hana, after last night, I didn't mess anything up, did I? Did she talk again? Did she... She asked me to hum, he said. Imani covered her mouth, eyes flooding. Oh my God, she whispered. Doctors called it trauma-induced mutism, he continued. Said it might take years, or never. That her brain locked speech away when my wife died. They gave me exercises, therapies, lists. None of it worked. He turned his head to look at her. Then you came in here with an old song and cheap crayons, he said softly, and my daughter said my name. Imani wiped a tear with the back of her hand. I didn't do anything magical, she whispered. She did that. I just gave her permission to feel safe. He shook his head. You underestimate yourself, he replied. You gave her a bridge. They fell quiet. The alley wasn't romantic. Dumpsters, old posters, a flickering light. But the way he was looking at her made it feel like the center of the world. I owe you more than I can ever repay, he said. Don't, she replied quickly. Don't turn this into a transaction. You don't buy your way out of this kind of gratitude. He absorbed that. What do I do then? He asked. Her answer was simple. Just don't hurt her, she said. Or me. He swallowed. That, He exhaled shakily. That I can promise? He thought of the life he lived, the enemies he'd made, the weight of his name. Could he really promise that? He looked at her again, at a woman who worked double shifts and still had room in her heart for a child who wasn't hers. He decided he had to, for both of them. He didn't call it a date. He called it a favor. Take the afternoon off, he told her one Saturday. I need help with Hannah. Help? She repeated. What, is she planning a heist? We're going to the aquarium, he said. She's never been. Imani's eyes softened immediately. You want me to come? She asked, he lied. She squinted. She doesn't use full sentences yet, boss. Don't play with me. He sighed. I asked, he corrected. But she said rivers and nodded. Imani felt something in her chest pop and fizz like soda. She tried to play it cool. Okay, she said. I guess someone has to make sure you don't spoil her with shark plushies. He did exactly that. They went as three. Han Seo-jun in a black hoodie and cap, trying to look like a normal dad. Imani in jeans and sneakers, curls out, laughing more freely than she did at work. Hannah in a little denim jacket, clutching her rabbit in one hand and Imani's fingers in the other. At each tank, Imani crouched beside Hannah and explained the fish in a gentle murmur. That one looks like he saw the bill for rent, she joked. Look at his face. Hannah huffed a tiny, breathy laugh. She laughed, Imani whispered, as if pointing out a rare animal. He saw it too. He took pictures of them, dozens. One where Hannah pressed her palm against the glass and a ray glided by. One where Imani threw her head back, laughing at something. One where Hannah leaned her head on Imani's shoulder during the dolphin show. He didn't post them, didn't save them to any cloud. He kept them on an old phone, locked in private. A quiet shrine to a life he wanted, but didn't feel he deserved. On the train ride back, Hannah fell asleep halfway between them, head on Imani's lap, feet on his thigh. Imani stroked Hannah's hair. You're a good father, she murmured unexpectedly. He blinked. No, I'm not, he said. Don't argue with me, she replied. I grew up around men who walked away from everything. You stand in the fire and hold her hand. That's more than most. He couldn't look at her. Imani, he said quietly. Yeah? There are things about me you don't know. She shrugged. You act like that's unique. There are things about me you don't know either. I'm not just a restaurant owner, he said. She met his eyes. I know, she replied. I'm not stupid. You're not scared? Sometimes, she said honestly, but I watch what you do, not just what people whisper. You protect your people. You show up for your daughter. Last time someone grabbed one of the younger waitresses, he disappeared from the block. I noticed things too. He exhaled. You should run from me, he said. She smiled, tired and amused. Maybe, she said, but your daughter keeps running to me, so here we are. He looked at the sleeping child and then at the woman cradling her. He realized in that moment that someone wasn't running. He was, running toward them. The confession didn't happen under fireworks, or on a rooftop, or in some dramatic showdown. It happened in his kitchen. He had offered her a ride home after a late shift. Hannah had cried when they pulled up to Imani's building, tiny fingers clutching Imani's sleeve, whispering her very first sentence. Don't go. Mani. Imani froze. Her eyes instantly filled. She cupped Hannah's cheek. Oh, honey, she whispered. I have to sleep. I'll see you tomorrow, okay? I promise. Hannah shook her head, lip wobbling. Seo-jun watched all of this with a lump in his throat. Come upstairs, he said suddenly, just for a bit, so she can calm down. Imani hesitated. Is that appropriate? She asked. He almost laughed. Imani, I run a Mafia syndicate, he said. Worrying about your appropriate presence in my kitchen is the least of my sins? She snorted. Fair. So they went upstairs. He made tea like his wife used to, badly but with effort. Imani sat at the table with Hannah in her lap, humming. Hannah slowly relaxed against her chest. You're really good at this, he said quietly, pouring hot water. At what? Sitting? She joked. At loving children who aren't your, he replied. She went quiet. I always thought I'd be a mom young, she admitted. Then life laughed. Now I just try to give pieces of that love wherever I can. He looked at her. The words came out before he could stop them. You already are one. To her, to us. He didn't say the last part out loud, but she heard it anyway. Her throat tightened. This is dangerous, she said. What? This, she gestured vaguely between them. Whatever we're doing, lines are blurring. You're my boss. You're you, and I'm me. And there's your daughter in my lap, asking me not to leave like I'm home, he said. Imani swallowed hard. Don't say things like that, she whispered. Not if you don't mean them. He stepped closer. I haven't said anything I don't mean to you, he said. Sometimes I say less than I should. But I never lie to you. Her eyes met his. She could have stepped back, could have laughed it off, could have changed the subject. Instead, she asked, What do you want from me, Han Seo-jun? His answer was simple. Your future, he said. With us. Her heart slammed. Us, she repeated carefully. Me, he nodded, glancing at Hana. And her. Silence stretched. She looked down at Hana, now half asleep, fingers braided in Imani's shirt. I never planned on this, she whispered. Neither did I, he replied. She laughed softly through tears. You know what my mom used to say? She asked. She said God has a stupid sense of humor. He takes the girl who grew up scared of gangs and guns and gives her a soft spot for a mafia boss's kid. He smiled, small and pained. Then what does it mean that he gave a mafia boss a soft spot for the woman who taught his child to speak? He asked. Her breath hitched. Somewhere between the humming and the crayons and the aquarium visits, love had formed. Not neat, not pretty, but real. I don't know if I can do this, she said honestly. I don't know if I can be with a man who lives in a world that could swallow us any second. His jaw clenched. Then I'll leave it, he said. She stared. Don't say that, she whispered. Not like it's nothing. That world is all you've known. It cost me my wife, he said. It almost cost me my daughter's voice. I refuse to let it cost me you. The room went silent. You'd walk away? Yes, he said. If it means I can build something clean with you. For her. He nodded toward Hana. Kids like her deserve fathers who don't have to look over their shoulders at breakfast, he added quietly. And women like you deserve men who come home from work smelling like grease and coffee, not gunpowder and fear. Her eyes overflowed. You're serious, she breathed. Completely, he answered. He stepped closer, slow enough for her to stop him if she wanted. Imani, yeah, I love you, he said. The words were simple, not dressed up, not wrapped in poetic language. But she heard everything underneath. The grief, the fear, the hope. She closed her eyes. I love her, she whispered, pressing her cheek to Hana's hair. He waited. And she swallowed. I'm falling for you, against my better judgment, every day. That was enough. He didn't kiss her, not with his daughter in her lap, not with a world still tangled around his ankles. He just reached out and slid his hand over hers on the table. Then let me make it safer, he said, for both of you. Leaving the syndicate wasn't a press release. It was war with his own habits. He called his lieutenants into a warehouse one by one, gave them territories, handed off accounts, closed operations that were built on fear alone. I'm done, he said. You fight over the scraps if you want. My name is off all of it. You can't just walk, one of them warned. The streets don't like vacuums. Then fill it, he replied, with someone smarter or dumber, I don't care. But nobody touches my restaurant. Nobody touches my staff. Nobody goes near Imani or my daughter, or I come back once. Only once. They believed him, because for the first time, his threats weren't about empire. They were about love, and love turned him into something even more dangerous. A man who had nothing to prove and everything to protect. It wasn't grand, it was perfect. 6 months after he left that life, they were in a small park outside the city. Leaves rustled overhead, kids shouted in the distance. A street musician played something soft on a guitar. Hana sat on a blanket between them, drawing circles and humming. Imani leaned back on her hands, face turned toward the sun. This feels fake, she said quietly, like someone's going to call cut and tell us to get back on set. No cameras here, he said. No scripts, just us. He watched her for a long moment. Then he pulled something from his pocket, a small ring, Simple. Gold with a tiny stone. Nothing flashy, nothing gaudy. She stared at it. Is this? Yes. You're really proposing to me while I'm wearing dollar store sneakers and yesterday's jeans? She asked. Yes, he said, because that's when you're most yourself. And I don't want some version of you dressed up for me. I want this one. Her eyes glazed. You sure? She whispered. You're not marrying a princess. You're marrying a tired black girl with 2 jobs, student loan debt, and a whole lot of trust issues. I'm not a king anymore, he replied gently. I'm just a man who got lucky enough to be chosen by you. Hannah tapped the ring with her crayon. Mani, she whispered. Imani laughed through tears. You're really using my kid against me now. Our kid, he corrected without thinking. She inhaled sharply. He froze. Too much? He asked. She shook her head quickly. No, just new. Then she looked him dead in the eye. Ask me properly, she said. He swallowed, took her hand. Imani Rivers, he said, you walked into my restaurant, my world, my daughter's life, and gave us back things we thought we'd lost forever. A voice, a future, a family. Will you marry me and let me spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of that? Tears spilled down her cheeks. Yes, she whispered. Then louder. Yes. Hannah clapped her hands, not fully understanding, just happy the 2 people she loved most were smiling at the same time. He slipped the ring onto Imani's finger. It wasn't perfect sizing. It was perfect anyway. He leaned in. This time he kissed her, gentle at first, like he was asking a question. She answered with both hands in his shirt, pulling him closer. Hannah giggled and covered her eyes with her rabbit. In that moment, the ghosts finally loosened their grip on his throat. He'd lost a wife once. He'd thought that meant he'd lost any right to joy. But here it was, not a replacement. Something new, something earned. They didn't move to a mansion. They moved to a small house at the edge of the city, with a tiny yard and peeling paint that they promised each other they'd fix next month. He invested in a legitimate logistics company. No more back rooms, no more undocumented runs. Imani cut down to one job, then eventually quit the other. Feels weird, she admitted, flipping pancakes on their first morning where she didn't have to rush to shift. Being allowed to be this calm. You're not calm, he said. You're just not drowning. Hannah went to a small speech therapy program twice a week. Her words came slowly, then faster, then in bursts. Daddy, look. Mani, come. I like this. Don't go. Again. Each one was a small miracle. Every time Imani and Seojun shared a look over her head, one that said, we did this, together. Their wedding was small, a rented hall, white dress borrowed from a cousin. Suit he already owned, a few staff from Midnight Soul, 1 or 2 old lieutenants who showed up in clean shirts looking painfully out of place. Hannah walked ahead of them with too many flower petals and not enough coordination. When the officiant asked, who gives this woman to this man? Hannah piped up, me. Everyone laughed. Imani cried. Seojun nearly did too. They said their vows. He promised to never bring the shadows of his old life into their home. She promised to never let him forget he was more than the worst thing he'd ever done. They kissed as husband and wife, while Hannah clapped so loudly you'd think she was cheering for a concert. It wasn't a fairy tale wedding.